Hello, and welcome to the Fantasy Rewind podcast. I'm your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and I'm joined as always by my friend, Michael Whifford.
Hey, hey.
So today, we are going to be talking about Willow, episode 4, titled
The Whispers of Nockmaar.
The Whispers of Nockmaar. Alright, and again, this is going to be Willow on the Disney Plus series there, so make sure you guys are watching that and keeping up with us. A couple of reminders before we dive on in, and that is if you want to get in contact with the show, you can send us an email, which is fantasyrewindpod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, which is @fantasyrewindpod. And we're on Twitter too, which is @fantasyrewind. All
we
right.
have a presence.
We have.
There.
We do have a presence. Small, but it's there. So before we dive into the rewind here, Mike, do you have any news that we want to discuss today?
Nope, not yet.
All right. So without any further delays, let's dive into the rewind.
Fantasy Rewind. I was a little hesitant jumping into, starting this episode because, there was some reservations from the last episode in terms of, they just showed up at Nockmaar and, Willow was like, oh, don't go up the stairs, and because it was Nockmaar, and so I was just kind of oh, I don't know. I was a little about it since it just seemed convenient. But I really like this episode, even if it was built out of convenience, because we got some more lore, a lot of lore that I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some more character building here with pretty much all of our characters in very meaningful ways. And I think it progressed the story in a very nice way, and it wrapped up kind of what we were talking about last episode with this concept of death in just fiction in general. So I'm excited to talk about that. And overall, honestly, this is probably one of the strongest episodes this season. I really do think that as we progress through the season, each episode has gotten a little bit better.
So yeah, just speaking in general terms, I have to agree with a lot of what you said there. I thought that this episode was quite good. I thought that you got a lot of good world building, a lot of good character growth in this episode. But the one thing I thought to watching it last episode was, so they're just going to conveniently go to Bavmorda's castle.
Yeah.
And I think they did that for familiarity with the people that watched the movie.
Correct.
As well as just to kind of have that throwback to, familiar place, familiar landscape. Let's go back there and do this. And as soon as Willow said, don't go up the highest tower, I knew they were going up the highest tower.
the highest tower. Yeah. I knew the same thing.
And so I was like, okay, this is one of those shows where it's clear and obvious where it's going. But all in all, yeah, I did enjoy this episode. I can't wait to learn more about it because this point here, Mike and I are on the same page again. We both have not watched beyond episode 4. So we're moving along now at a similar pace. No one knows what is coming. So we'll see what comes around the next bend.
Yeah, so we start off here. Our characters are stumbling toward the castle. I thought this part was a little weird again. It's oh, we shouldn't go in there. And I'm yeah, no crap. This is where Bavmorda lived. And they're but Graydon's going to die. Or Alora Dan's Graydon's going to die if we don't go in there. And I'm how is going in there going to help him? There's no food. You know what I mean? I was just sitting there okay, that's dumb. But I guess the storm and stuff. And I loved Brahmin in this episode. He killed it. He slayed.
You mean
His
Borman?
humor was on point. Yeah. What did I say? Broman?
You keep on saying Bromwyn, but it's Borman.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to start calling him Bro. Anyway, Bro is just laying down some really great lines in this episode. I mean, he's sitting there talking about, he was just, there was some kind of quip between him and Kit, and he was this is your grandmother's castle, or whatever, and it just, laughing. He says, he kind of calls it as it is.
Right.
And it's so refreshing. Anyway, so, Kit's having this sort of flashback of Bavmorda surviving in her and her brother, And it's, sort of a foreshadowing of this whispering of Nockmaar as we're going through here a little bit. In terms of, like, there's some influence in the castle. And while I don't think it really affects Kit in any meaningful way, I think it is foreshadowing for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, this was really interesting. We get into the throne room. They chain Graydon up. And Brahman's saying about how they used to have wild parties that would last 2 to 3 days. And I'm just like, okay, I love that they're throwing in, like, adult humor for the adults. And, like, it still would be, like, kid appropriate. Like, very much so. But Kit wants to just, like, end Grade and, like, let's just kill him. We know what's going to happen. And everyone's just, they're finally just like, okay, fine, you're gonna do it then if you're so willing to do this, like. And she kind of just shuts up, which I was like, yes, thank you, just stop talking, you're dumb. This is keeping me from seeing my brother. Well, actually, the storm kind of is too, and you're not saying about anything about that. I did think this part was a little strange because Willow's just lounging on the throne.
Yeah,
which is
I
hilarious.
thought that was really funny. Made me think of Tyrion in Game of Thrones.
Yes. But they never asked him until after they've already basically decided that Kit's going to kill Graydon. They never even asked Willow, and Willow's just sitting there quiet. And I'm just like, you've got this great wizard who just did all this great magic. Like, wouldn't you ask him, what should we do about Graydon? Why hasn't Willow said anything yet? Like, it just seems really weird that they're almost using Willow like this sort of last resort.
So they did ask Willow if he could use his magic on him, and he said, not unless you want me to rip his insides apart, or something like that. So I thought that was like a sign that, like, Willow might have some magical strength to him, but he doesn't quite have the finesse that would be required to do, like, a good healing spell.
Yeah, they didn't ask him that until after I'm pretty sure they had gone through and, like, basically, drawn straws and Kit was going to kill him.
Yep.
Type thing. And I just thought that was so weird. Like, hey, do you know anything about this? And, like, even, like, that should have almost been, like, when it was revealed, like, he had it on him, like, that he was impacted, they could have been like, hey, can you do anything about this? And he could have been like, no. And then this would make a lot more, you know what I mean? This would make a lot more sense, him not saying anything, them not involving him, really. But, like, this is a magical wound. You would talk to the wizard in your party.
Right? The magic user should be involved.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like a small nitpick, I guess. Anyway, so we get some really interesting history here with Bev Marta, and Willow is kind of telling us all this. Mm-hmm. And it's cool, like, that Willow knows all this stuff, and Graydon actually knows a lot of stuff too in this episode, like a lot of information that you're kind of like,
How do you know all that? Like, you're seeing that Graydon is almost as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable in some points, as Willow.
Yeah.
Or than Willow.
Yes. But we find out that Bev Marta was kidnapped by the Order of the Worm, and she was turned evil by the crone. She used to be good, and then she was turned evil by the crone. So now we know that the crone is not Bev Marta, but
Bev Marta's
a
master.
higher echelon, of evil, if you will. I do think it's really interesting, though, that she was good at one point and then turned evil. While Sorsha's like, we have Bev Marta's blood in us and we can be evil, like, at the same time, there's good there, too. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of reckoning or cleansing at some point of their line. Basically, Willow does finally give some advice that, like, hey, she was turned evil, so the only way to get rid of this evil spell is with an evil spell. So we can find it probably here, since this is, like, the capital of evil. And they look in Nockmaar's library, they find this spell book, they have all the supplies there, that's convenient. And
they didn't have all the supplies. They didn't have Nightshade, and then Muffin Girl is like, hey, let's use the spleen of a possum or whatever.
Yeah, because that's all they eat is Nightshade.
And then she all but admitted to putting possum spleen or Nightshade into her muffins, which was interesting.
or that was sarcasm.
Might have been
not
sarcasm.
quite sure. Not quite sure. I did think it was really interesting in Brahman to bring this up. I didn't say Brahmin. I said Brahman. Brahman.
Whatever you want to say. It's fine. People know who you're talking about by this point, I think.
Yeah. All this stuff I was really wondering at this point, why wasn't this castle sacked, burned to the ground, everything in it destroyed, right? Whether or not it is, and Brahman says, oh, it's because everyone thinks it's cursed. Well, then you would destroy it most likely, right? Why would you leave it all intact, just abandoned for the crone or her cronies to, sit there and use it, or for other evil wannabes to come and claim it, or, utilize this power in some way, shape, or form? I don't know. I thought that part was a little bit like, maybe they could have explained that just a touch better.
It's a little shaky, but here's my beef with that part there. Okay. So your normal army dude doesn't want to go and sack this castle because they're afraid that it's cursed, that bad stuff will happen. Why didn't Rizal dispel any evil that was there? Why didn't
That's another good question.
Willow and Rizal team up to do it if she couldn't do it herself? You know what I mean? Like, there was a powerful sorceress there when Beth-Morda was defeated. Why didn't she do anything afterwards? Maybe, that should be resolved. I don't know, if we will get that resolution later. But also, I looked this up, and so Borman's full name is Thraxis Borman. So
Thraxis Borman.
Yeah, so if you want to call him Thraxis or
Thoraxis, I'll probably call him
community.
Drax at that point.
Yeah.
I'll just call him Borman. I got it, Borman. Anyway, I've been calling him Broman, haven't I?
You've been calling him like Brahmin, or some kind of
Broman,
noodle.
or Borman. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. Anyway, sorry everyone who's still listening to us at this point, as I take my phonetic lesson with his name. So anyway, we continue on here, and we finally get this sort of first acknowledgement of what happened last episode. Kit and Jade are discussing Valentine, and this is a bit of a heart-to-heart, and Jade's kind of going through and talking about how, what Valentine meant to her and how he changed her life. I really like this because Jade's really upset, and she's not just immediately oh, I'm all better now. It still lingers with her throughout this episode. But you get why Valentine was so important and how difficult this was. Yeah. So I did like it. I thought it was good. What were your thoughts?
I specifically thought that the way they handled Jade dealing with the grief at the death or from killing Valentine was done really well.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I, on the contrary, do not think that Willow even addressed Silas's death.
Oh, no, not at all.
And so I thought that on one hand, it was handled really well. On the other hand, it was what we were used to, which is, the dismissal, this never happened, out of sight, out of mind. But yeah, I thought that the way they handled Jade mourning, having to kill Valentine, who was her mentor, her father figure that raised her up out of poverty, it was done really well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring it up a little bit later on, but towards the end of the episode. But yeah, Silas never mentioned once in this episode, and Willow just is joking around and everything throughout the entire episode, pretty much. So yeah, Borman is snooping around the castle. Him and Jade are both going to be keeping an eye out for the Gales, while Willow and Alora Dannon perform this spell on Graydon to try to dispel the leech's influence.
And Kit's there too.
Well, Kit's just kind of keeping watch. Yeah. She's there.
That's what I mean. She's there. She's not doing much. But she's there.
Yeah. Borman finds this vault that's sealed up, and there's Whispers of Nockmaar, trying to get him to open it. I don't know. Yeah. They were trying to get him to open it, and it was whatever.
I mean, honestly, I'm really disappointed with this part because he didn't open it. And there was
Yeah.
like all like this foreshadowing of, oh crap, he's gonna open this thinking there's gonna be treasure or whatnot, and
And there's gonna
bad
be
stuff is gonna
evil.
happen. Yeah, but he
Nothing
never
comes of it
opened it.
really.
And I was like, oh man, it's such a letdown. Like all this build up for nothing. Just like comedic relief of him running around trying to find stuff to pry open this vault
Yes.
door.
I will say that it was a good engine for him to have a meaningful conversation with Jade.
Yeah, that conversation was good.
Yeah, which is really good. We're going to flip back over into where Graydon is. We start getting hints here that Graydon has a dark past. And it made me think here that he was sick with some kind of evil or magic outside of what the Lich did to him. Because what we see kind of in his fever dream, we see it kind of through his eyes. Yeah, so Graydon has this dark past, and we're seeing this through his eyes, like in this fever dream, which is kind of neat. I like that they did that.
Me
'Cause we
too,
get
actually,
sort
yeah.
of his dad saying like, you're going to have an heir of Terrazline, and you've already ruined that from me once. And we get sort of like this to the side. It looks like kind of someone that could be related to him, and we find out later I'm
It's his
assuming
older brother.
his older brother,
Yeah.
and he looks kind of dead.
Yes.
And so
looks like he has a broke neck.
yeah, after this we get Borman. He's sacking the castle. He's addressing how weird that no one sacked it. They just think it's cursed. Again, the sort of that like good comedic timing to sort of explain like what's happening a little bit, even though it wasn't really, I don't think, that great of an explanation. Yeah.
I think that's been his role really in this series is like Borman provides comedic relief, but he also provides lots of knowledge drops
Exposition,
throughout
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. So Kit's seeing sort of going around, she's going to get the possum bladder, like you had said, or liver, whatever it was.
I think it's
And-
like it's something.
Yeah, wherever the nightshade is in the possum. Anyway, she's seeing or hearing kind of Bevmarda's coronation from the crone
Yes.
in this huge tapestry, which she ends up burning and exposing.
a secret
hallway?
passage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hallway she came down apparently.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, because she ends up in the medicine thing room, right?
Yeah, because see, like I fully expected her when she burned down that tapestry to walk down the pathway and end up somewhere like secret, somewhere she hadn't
Or
been
the
before.
high tower.
Yeah, end up in the high tower. But no, it almost seems like the hallways are shifting and she's kind of wandering through and exploring more than what she should have, but it's getting her back to where she started in the first place.
Yeah. But I kind of like this explanation of her coronation. We hear about, like, the blood of the six running through her, and, she's basically... Bevmarda didn't see herself as the villain. She was going to get rid of all sorrow in the world.
Yeah, I'm not a villain. I'm just going to murder a child.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of like, I need a little bit more information on this whole Path of the Worm thing. Like,
The blood of the six. What does that all
Yeah,
mean? Maybe we'll get more info in the future episodes.
I hope so. We did get a bit more info later on, but anyway, Borman and Jade have this moment as Borman's kind of, wandering around looking for the vault again, and they start kind of talking about grief, and Borman says how, like, Ballantyne would have wanted her to deal with things in a certain, like, in a way. He would have wanted her to, like, clasp onto her dream and seize it, and, like, he talks about when his partner died, and I'm not sure if that means Mad Mardigan or, like, someone he, like, a partner, relationship partner.
Right.
But when they died, he sort of has this dream and he seized onto it, and he sort of found something to keep him carrying on, and obviously that resonates with Jade a bit, and I think it's probably going to be protecting Alora Dannon,
Yeah.
or whatever it happens to be. But she hugs him, and it was actually a really sweet scene. Now we get kind of flip back to Graydon. The Lich is speaking through him, and I'm gonna say that Graydon was definitely an upgrade over Ballantyne for the Lich.
Oh, for sure, right?
Because as we go through this, like, he ends up being able to do magic and all this other crazy stuff. Like, we don't get any of the goo coming out of him, which I would have liked.
He's not turning into a decomposing corpse as much.
As much, yeah. Also, he wasn't as infected.
I was going to say it also wasn't as long of an infection.
Yeah. So, this is where I had my first a bit of an issue with this part too, is when they're trying to, they're throwing the stuff on Graydon, they're trying to get the Lich out and all this. Like, the Lich is speaking through Graydon, trying to sow doubt between them as they're, going through the spell. And then Lord Dannon's like, oh, I gotta leave because the Lich said, like, she doesn't know the truth about you, Willow, or whatever. And she's like, what happened to, and then his daughter's voice is coming through as well, and like, you let us down, or whatever. And she's like, what happened to your village? And Willow's like, don't listen to him. And she's just like, I don't know about you anymore. Like,
I have to listen to him.
Like, he said 2 sentences. He's possessed. Like, why do you care?
Yeah,
and we know.
For real.
I mean, I know why they did this, because they wanted her to leave so they could set up the rest of the episode. But like, it was just like, so is it more important that this truth about Willow, which you can find out, hey, any other time,
and it's an insignificant detail
as of right now, yeah, or save Graydon's life? Girl, come on.
Right. And see, I was half expecting there to be a little flashback as well, where like you got to see what happened to Willow's village, and I hope we get there eventually and find out what happened to him, his wife, and his village, and his son, and everything like that. Because I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, they're definitely building to, they're going to show that at some point, and it's going to be like this big reveal. The way that they're kind of like doing things, I feel like they're really building that up. I wish they had said more, like, I wish it had been like a spell thing, right? Like, maybe Lord Dannon had kind of gotten some doubt in her face, but was still sort of saying the spell, and then Willow's like, stuffs the rag in Graydon's mouth like he does, and then it's like, we need something stronger. Go get this one thing that's going to help pacify him. And then she, at that point she could have left and then sort of had this like moment to like decompress out in the hallway, and then her and Kit could have had that conversation. I think that would have been better than just like you're no help to me, just leave. Like, okay, come on now. You already said you can't do this on your own, so why are you kicking her out? I don't know. It was just
it was just done a little
some
poor.
Of that stuff is a little silly, but
yeah.
Anyway, this conversation between Allura and Kit, I like it because, one, Kit starts to, I feel like, have some remorse or some empathy for Allura Dannon and not just feeling jealousy all the time.
Yes.
As Laura kind of goes in and discusses like the woodcutters and what happened in the woods, and as Kit's trying to open up to Allura,
I know, I just couldn't help but laugh
I was a little mad
part.
about this.
Yeah.
A little bit mad about this. Allura's like, wait, do you hear that? The crying? And like, she's hearing her mother. And there's this, flashback. She basically disappears into almost like a time vortex.
Yeah, kind of to see her mom murdered.
Yes, but like she hears her mom say like how I see you, like, and so it's like a kind of sort of cute little connection, I guess, to that. Like, or it's it's sort of resolving a lot. It's resolving a lot of the deaths, meaningful deaths that have happened in the series. Lord Dannon's mother. The woodcutters, I wouldn't say those were necessarily meaningful, but
I was going to say the same thing.
Ballantyne, like, those deaths, outside of, just not Silas.
He's just not Silas. He was cast to the side, and he was forgotten once he went into the abyss.
Yeah. So, the castle's cursed. Jade is seeing the death of her parents. As we flip over to her, she starts like walking in the hallway, seeing the death of her parents, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me.
And it's the general from the first movie?
Yeah, the first movie. I saw him and I was like, oh no, oh man, like I recognize that face or that mask that he wears.
Yeah. So they, like you had said at the beginning of the episode, they were definitely doing this to get callbacks. And so she starts fighting the ghost general.
Yeah,
Not quite
she's
sure
fighting
what
ghosts.
It was. She ends up, getting into the storeroom where all the supplies were, and putting everything up against the wall. Kit ends up coming into that room from another entrance.
Yeah. So something they didn't do, which I was fully expecting them to do, and I kind of wish they did, was when they were like going out in separate directions in the castle, like having something pretend to be one of the party members. You know what I mean? Like have it be like a ghost or like something that's not really Kit walking behind Jade, and then all of a sudden like they're talking, and then like it will come transform and go after her or whatever. Like I was expecting like that kind of like hidden traitor type of reveal almost.
Well, they kind of did that a little bit.
A little bit with Graydon, but
yeah. So we have Jade and Kit kind of running into each other. Borman ends up being at the door, not the general, and he thinks they took the key because he can't find it. And oh, surprise, surprise! So now they know that he has it, and he lied about it, and yeah, I mean that was kind of underwhelming, but it sort of also got out in the air that Kit and Jade like each other, and Borman knows it, so that was,
or at least they liked each other at one point. I think they still do, but
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's just right now it's in a weird place because there's been a lot of trauma, right?
Because it's been a weird time. Yeah, lots of drama, lots of trauma, all kinds of vamos.
Now, Elora Danon finally comes back out of her time warp visit and goes back in. We see Graydon getting up off of what he had been tied to. I don't know, a spoke wheel. Very strange because
Off of something, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't quite looking like the same setup that they had before.
No.
Like, because he was chained, his arms were chained, right? And yeah. Anyway, I immediately knew. I was like, okay, something's off here. Willow's not here, probably for a reason, and he's broken out of everything. Obviously, there's some subterfuge here, and so I was immediately like, yeah, Graydon's not all right.
Right, it was very clear and obvious.
Yeah, but Graydon's like, Willow became the Lich. He cleansed me, but then he became the Lich. And Elora Danon's like, oh my gosh, we got to go save him. Not questioning how he got out of his bonds or anything else before Willow became the Lich. But I mean, this was actually pretty smart. Graydon really didn't push anything. He let Elora Danon make all the decisions.
Right. He kind of like guided her like slyly
to
get to what he wanted.
Yeah, because he's like, well, we got to think, what would Willow do? What would the Lich do? Go to the high tower. Yeah, let's go there. And then they go in, and, oh, I'm actually the Lich. I'm going to finish what Bavmorda started. And we have that whole scene. And it comes out that Willow wasn't a great wizard and didn't actually stop Bavmorda. It was Bavmorda's carelessness, and this is Graydon the Lich telling everyone this. And it's like, yeah, no crap. We as the...
Was anybody other than Elora in the room, though? Because I thought it was just Elora, Willow, and
it was just
Graydon.
Elora. Yeah. So only Elora knows that now, which I think is going to sow some doubt about Willow with their relationship.
I mean, they've been doing that every episode regardless.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I know. But that's probably the purpose of that. The Lich is like, so what are you going to do, Willow? And he's like, well, just like last time, this time I have my friends. And it's Borman, Kit, and Jade come in, and they immediately take down the Lich and just start punching him in the face. Borman does. I'm going to beat him out of here. I'm going to beat the Lich out of here.
I'm going to cure him with my fist.
Yeah. I was hoping for some goo or something, at this point, like, because they had mentioned it. So I was like, ooh, there's going to be some transmission or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't, and Elora Danon just goes over there and's like, I can cleanse him. Willow's like, no!
This is where I thought the goo was going to come into play.
Yeah, and, well, she just starts sucking out the evil from him.
She sucks the soul out of him. Yeah.
Goes threw her back up into the sky like Marta did. She's sort of like this giant filter that filtering out all the evil. But as she's doing this, we get a flashback for Graydon where Graydon and his brother are in this tree together. And his brother was, like, hey, I'll catch you if you fall and all this. And, Graydon's scared. But then Graydon just goes and pushes his brother off of this tree and kills him.
His eyes turn red, too, though.
Yes. And so, like, that's really bringing up this thing that there was something in Graydon at some point.
Yeah.
Or
exactly
maybe still
what
in him.
Evil entity it is, we don't know yet, but it was something evil.
Yeah, and so this is also sowing some doubt between Laura Dannon and Graydon, because the way she was looking at him as they were riding away, there was definitely some.
Because she saw that flashback too.
Yeah, she did. So I hope we get some more exposition on that and what happened to him, because we didn't mention this before, but Graydon's chest was all cut up, and he acted like he's known about this sort of exorcism thing before.
Like he's had one done before, probably.
Yes. So I'm interested to get more information on him, and he's an
interesting
Borman
character.
Are definitely the most interesting. Borman's the funnest by far.
Yeah.
But I think Graydon's character, how he's written, like his backstory's written, is the most interesting.
So one thing we haven't mentioned yet as well is that before Laura goes in, like, cleanses Graydon from the evil there, Kit finally gets to say what she's been hanging on to the whole time, and it's that Laura was able to do the tree thing, and it grew into this big, beautiful tree, and it kind of gives Laura the confidence she needed to go forward and do the cleansing without, like, any magical ingredients other than just, like, her Goldilocks, just, magic inherent within her, just going in and sucking the evil out.
Yes, I was just sitting there like, thank you for finally saying this.
For real. I was like, about time. You had one piece of valuable information, Kit, and you finally delivered it.
And then we get a little bit more exposition about the whole Blood of the Six. It just talked about they were these 6 nymphs, I think it was, who betrayed the mother. Not sure what all that means just yet, but I'm glad that they're really building up this whole history to this and giving us more exposition for everything that happens in this universe. They're really world building and universe building.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
A little bit every episode.
Mm-hmm. So we have the Gales, 2 of them, show up kind of in the background, showing us that, hey, next episode we're probably going to have them. And we also have, at the very end, Eric wakes up in a open jail cell.
In like a ruined city, basically.
I've thought it was like this castle courtyard or something.
Yeah.
And then he like walks out, and it's this great, huge city. Like, this was definitely a world power at some point, because there was just huge statues. It was super long, but it was obviously abandoned and left for just dead.
You know what it made me think of, actually? Is it made me think of Wheel of Time with the one forbidden city that you're not supposed to go in there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, man. Yeah, Shadow Logoth. I was blanking on the name, but it made me think of Shadow Logoth. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally going to be like that, isn't it? And we'll see.
It might be. Yeah, it might be. I really love what they're doing with the world building. It's really exciting. So
I think that's going to be the immemorial city they have to get to, obviously.
Yeah, I would say so too. But I want to learn more about it. Like, what happened to it? Why did it go from this sprawling looking empire to the liches there?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us with our discussion of episode 4 of Willow. So we're going to carry on and dive into episode 5. Next episode, we're also going to dive into like a, hey, you should check out this book. Here's why. And give like almost like a pitch episode where Mike will give a pitch for a series that he enjoys, and I'm going to give a pitch for a series I enjoy. And we'll see if anyone wants to check these series out, because I know that I definitely am thoroughly enjoying the one that I'm currently in, and I'm going to recommend. All right, but all that being said, this is going to be two nerds signing off. See ya.
See ya.